Psalm 140. And just a few moments ago, we read from Matthew chapter 6, and the Lord in Matthew chapter 6 said, "Pray then like this." And he, of course, began, "Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name." And he moves down, and the last line of that prayer is, "But deliver us from evil." Deliver us from evil is a common request. In the 140th Psalm, that is how it begins. "Deliver me, O Lord, from evil men." The world is full of evil men. David was constantly chased throughout his life, people trying to take his life. Many godly men throughout the Scriptures had those difficult types of life. Joseph, his own brothers, plotted to take his life. He ended up being sold into slavery, being taken away from his family and growing up in a foreign land. Other men of God have had similar circumstances like Daniel and Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego and lots of other people that just had difficult things that they had to go through. Evil and violence and all sorts of things worked against them. Paul supplies a whole list of things that he faced in life. And life is kind of that way. We have an idiom in our language: when it rains, it pours. And we reference that when something is going wrong, it just seems like everything goes wrong. It just all falls apart. The wheels come off the cart. And life is hard. Now, I want to suggest something to you. It's probably not very likely that everything is actually going wrong in our life. We have a tendency to notice the things that we're looking for. When I was meditating about this lesson, I was thinking about lots of different things, and one of the things that popped into my head had to do with baseball. In the history of the game of baseball, which has been played since the 19th century, in the history of baseball, there have been 42 people who have spent a season batting at 400. 42 people in the history of the game. 400 is getting 4 hits every 10 times you come up to bat. We think of someone who bats 200 as having a terrible batting average and being in a terrible batting slump. But the truth of the matter is, there's only a difference of 2 hits per every 10 at-bats between those two averages. One guy gets 2 hits every 10 times he comes up to the plate. The other guy gets 4 hits. But when you watch players play and they're batting 400, you think they hit every time they come to the plate. And when you watch batters play who are batting 200, you think they never get a hit. Do you want to know why? Because in the one case, you are looking for the one not to get a hit, and in the other case, you're looking for the one to get a hit. And those things that you focus on, those things that you look at, that's what you notice. And I think more often than not, that is what happens in life. There's a lot of evil in the world around us, but when we get in that mindset that we are concerned about the terrible things that are happening to us, all we tend to focus on are the things that are going wrong, the things that go different than the way we want them to, the hardships, the difficulties, the losses, the pains. And I'm not suggesting that bad and difficult things don't happen. I'm saying that they happen to everyone. And that's what this psalm is about. Deliver me, O Lord, from evil men. Preserve me from violent men, planting evil things in their heart and stir hands of the wicked. Preserve me from violent men who have planned to trip up my feet. The arrogant have hidden a trap for me, and with cords they have spread a net. Beside the way they have set snares for me. I say to the Lord, you are my God. Give ear to the voice of my pleas for mercy, O Lord. O Lord, my Lord, the strength of my salvation, you have covered my head in the day of battle. Grant not, O Lord, the desires of the wicked. Do not further their evil plot, or they will be exalted. As for the head of those who surround me, Let the mischief of their lips overwhelm them. Let burning coals fall upon them. Let them be cast into fire, into miry pits, no more to rise. Let not the slanderer be established in the land. Let evil hunt down the violent men speedily. I know that the Lord will maintain the cause of the afflicted, will execute justice for the needy. Surely the righteous shall give thanks to your name. The upright shall dwell in your presence. This is a psalm about the evil that happens in the world, about the evil that men plot against us, about the terrible things that beset us, about the traps that are set for us. It's about prayer. It's about prayer for deliverance from evil. And it's about trust in God, that He is there, that our enemies will not be victorious, that we will be delivered because He has promised. We want to observe a few things about this psalm, make some application, think about what it means. And so let's start with verses 1 and 2. Deliver me, O Lord, from evil men. Preserve me from violent men, who plan evil things in their hearts, stir up wars continually. They make their tongue sharp as a serpent's, and under their lips is the venom of asps. Evil men. What are evil men? Who are evil men? What does that look like? He says three things are characters of evil men. They are violent. Now, we understand what violence is, right? Violence is what takes place in the city streets. Violence is the guy in New York that hit the man in the back of the head with a bat the other day. That's a violent act, and it certainly is a violent act. And violence is gun violence, and violence is all of these horrible things that are done where people are stabbed or maimed or abused or beaten. All of that is violence, but there's a lot of other things that are violence as well. The Bible doesn't limit violence just to physical violence. Violence in the Bible is unjust actions. It's when I treat someone without justice. It's when I do things that are unfair. Violence in the Bible is using improper force against others, taking advantage of a position that I might have over them, abusing a relationship that I might have. Violence is divorce, according to the prophet Malachi. Violence is a lot of things that happen every day, and they come a whole lot closer to home than we often think. We might not think of ourselves as violent people, but we may be as unjust to others. We may treat them unfairly. We may, what's the common idiom, throw them under the bus. We may be the one who stands back, knowing that I've made a mistake, but my coworker is getting blamed for it, and so I sit there quietly and say nothing because I don't want to get in trouble. That's violence. I may not beat him, but I act unjustly toward him. That makes me an evil man. Evil men are characterized by being the kind of people who plan and plot evil. Did you notice he said that? Who plan evil things in their heart. People who use their capacity to think and to reason and to meditate, not to figure out what is good and what is right and what is proper and how they can help others, but to decide how they can serve themselves. When Jesus said it's more blessed to give than to receive, he was talking about a whole lot more than gifts or than money. He was saying it's more blessed to use yourself in service to others than it is to be served. That's what he did. He came not to be served, but to serve and to give himself as a ransom for many. Evil men plan and plot their injustice. They plan and plot their improper use of the influence that they have, or the improper use of the position that they have, or the improper use of the relationships that they share. They plan and plot how to make more for themselves and build themselves up and accomplish more for themselves, giving no thought to their neighbor. They pass by on the other side of the street, like the priest and the Pharisee. They don't go and bind up the wounds like the Samaritan. They plot their way to avoid doing the things that righteous men do. That's the characteristics of evil men. Violence and planning and plotting their evil. And then he says they stir up wars continually, stirring up conflict. Just because it says wars doesn't mean that it's talking about world leaders and it's talking about armies and it's talking about hostile warfare. It's talking about conflicts. They start battles. They stir up strife. They set people at odds with one another. They work to divide. That's a strategy of life, isn't it? If I'm actually serving myself, it works to my advantage. If I can divide everyone, then I can conquer them. You ever heard that? Divide and conquer? Evil men stir up such conflict. Evil men set brothers at odds with one another. Evil men try to divide society. Evil men use that to their advantage. And we live in that world. And we live in a world that have people doing these things. And I don't believe that hardly any of them think of themselves as being evil. And I know we don't think of ourselves as being evil when we do it. And we should make no mistake. We have done it, and we may do it again. Evil men. That's the kind of people that God is talking about when he talks about evil men. Deliver me is the prayer. Bring me away from these people. Protect me from these people. Separate me from such people. What a terrible thing to have to say. That people would think and behave in such a way that I feel like I'm better off being separated from them than being with them. But that's the prayer to God. Deliver me from these men. Their tongue is sharp as serpents. They have the venom of asps under their lips. Such people use their words for harm. God has given us this fantastic gift of communication, this ability to share our ideas with other people. The ability of open up and expressing our inner self, the part of us that people can't see. Who knows a man's thought except the spirit of the man within him? The only person that can reveal the true character of you is you. And the mechanism that God gave us to do that is communication. Evil men use their communication to destroy, to harm. Evil men's words are like the venom of a snake. Look with me, if you will, at Proverbs chapter 12. Read with me the words found in verse 18. There is one whose rash words are like sword thrusts, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. We have this power of communication that's given to us, and the use of that tool can either heal people or maim them, help them or hurt them. Evil men abuse communication, just like they abuse their positions of power, just like they abuse their advantages of wealth, just like they abuse every other relationship and circumstance that they can. Look with me at the book of James. We want to look at James chapter 3. Verse 6, and the tongue is a fire, a world of unrighteousness. The tongue is set among our members, staining the whole body, setting on fire the entire course of life, and set on fire by hell itself. Verse 9, with it, that's the tongue, we bless our Lord and Father. And with it we curse people who are made in the likeness of God. What I learned when I read James chapter 3 and verse 9 is something that is a terrible thing for me to learn, but it's the truth, and so I need to learn it. I need to be confronted with this truth and not believe the lie that evil people are only those people. It's the people outside of here. It's the people that aren't me. No. He says that the tongue can simultaneously bless God and then be used as a sword to thrust in men who are made in his image. He's not just talking about those people when he talks about the dangers of the evil tongue. He's talking about me. And he's talking about you. We need to think about the things that we say and think about the effects of what we say. Or we become the evil men that the people around us pray to God to be delivered from. Verses 4 and 5. Guard me, O Lord, from the hands of the wicked. Preserve me from violent men who have planned to trip up my feet. The arrogant have hidden a trap for me. With cords they've spread a net beside the way. They have set snares for me. We need to trust that God will watch and protect us from the evil schemes that people have set for us. Guard me, O Lord, from the hands of the wicked. That's where this starts. Guard me, Lord, from the hands of the wicked. Guard me, Lord, from violent men. Guard me, Lord, from those who have planned to trip up my feet. Guard me, Lord, from those that have hidden a trap for me. Guard me, Lord, from those who have spread the net. We need to trust that God will watch and protect us. There's absolutely no need for us to take any pride at all in our ability to outsmart evil men. For just a moment, I may be talking to myself more than I'm talking to anyone else. I don't know. But I would like to think that I'm bright enough a lot of times to keep myself from falling prey, keep myself from being attacked, keep myself from being harmed. Notice the traps that are set for me and avoid them because I'm more clever than those evil men. That's not what he says. And I don't need to take pride in the fact that I can outsmart the evil. I need to rely upon God. I need to trust that God is there. I need to trust that God is watching. I need to not worry about what they're doing and what they're planning and what they want. And instead, pray, guard me. Guard me from their hands. Guard me from their plans. Guard me from their snares and their traps. Not taking pride in my ability to outsmart them and protect myself, but instead do what the Lord commands. That's my job, to just keep doing what God teaches that men should do. Keep treating people right. Keep being just. Keep being fair. Keep being honest. It doesn't matter that you lie to me. I need to be honest to you. It doesn't matter that you've set a trap for me, that you're trying to undo me, that you're trying to undermine me with the boss. I need to tell the boss the good things that you're doing. I need to continue to trust that God's going to take care of things, and I need to keep doing what is right, building people up, using my words to heal and to help, using my life to be a beacon of light amongst all the evil in the world, making certain that I'm not contributing to the rain. When it rains, it pours. How much of that's coming from me? I need to trust that God's going to take care of those things and just do what is proper. So often we justify in our minds mistreating people, speaking evil of people, gossiping about people, doing all sorts of other things. We justify it in our minds by saying, but they're bad people and they deserve it. That doesn't excuse me. I need to let God take care of it. I need to say to God, God, guard me from these people. Guard me from their plans. And I need to keep doing what is right and what is honorable and what is just and what is fair and what is true and what is honest and what is kind and what is peaceable. Now, this doesn't mean that we shouldn't be wise. We know Matthew 10, verse 16, where he sent the disciples out and he told them to be wise as serpents, but innocent as doves. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't be wise. This doesn't mean that we're naive. This doesn't mean that we're not aware that these people are setting these traps, that these people are doing these things, that these people are speaking evil against us, that these people are trying to hurt us. Doesn't mean that we don't know that. It means that despite the fact that we know that, we go on and act as peaceful as doves, as innocent as doves. We go ahead and do the right thing anyway. And that is what the psalmist is saying. That we need to primarily put our faith and confidence in God's deliverance, in God's justice, in God's help, in God's providence. And not feel like that we have to do it ourselves. By the way, when justice is served, we don't need to rejoice over it either. There's no joy in anyone suffering. Verses 6 and 7, the psalm says, I say to you, Lord, you're my God. Give ear to the voice of my pleas for mercy, O Lord. O Lord, my God, the strength of my salvation, you have covered my head in the day of battle. Now, in verse 6, it almost seems to me, at least the way I read it, and maybe I'm reading something into it, I don't know, but the way I read it, I say to the Lord, you are my God. Give ear to the voice of my pleas for mercy. It almost comes across as the psalmist, or me, or you, the person who is under consideration, is crying out to God, asking God to listen to us because we don't feel like He is. Give ear to the voice of my pleas. Listen to me. This is very similar to other places where the people of God cried out, how long will you allow these things? And then he comes up in verse 7 and says, O Lord, my Lord, the strength of my salvation, you have covered my head in the day of battle. And I think that this is a statement of faith, not a statement of sight. If we apply this psalm to Jesus, there were evil men plotting against Jesus, right? They were trying to undermine him. They were trying to undermine his work. They were trying to make him look guilty. They were trying to have him put to death. There were evil men plotting and planning against Jesus. They were paying men to lie about him. And he spoke not evil in return. He just simply moved forward doing what it was his to do. He actually cried out to the Lord. We sang a prayer about it, a song about it just a moment ago, right? About how he was in the garden, all alone, weeping, praying, petitioning. Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. You know where Jesus ended up? Beaten on a cross, dead and in a tomb. If we applied this psalm to Jesus, he did all of these things He pled with God, and he still went to the cross. And it's still true that he can say, "O Lord, my Lord, the strength of my salvation, you have covered my head in the day of battle." Because you see, the promise of God isn't to deliver us from the trial. The promise of God is giving us a way through the trial. And 3 days later, after he was beaten, after he bled, after he was hung on the cross, after he was made fun of, after his disciples deserted him and he sat lonely on the cross and died, after that, after he was buried, 3 days later, he got his victory. 3 days later, he was raised. That's when he became victorious over the enemy of death. And that's when we're going to be victorious as well, when God raises us up on the last day. He's our Savior. He is our deliverer. He is covering our head in the day of battle. He is covering our head today, right now, in the middle of it. Even while it's raining and pouring, even while the plots are against us, even while the traps are set, and even when we fall into them. Look at verses 9 and 10. As for the head of those who surround me, let the mischief of their lips overwhelm them. Let their words come back and bite them, is what that is. Remember, these are the people whose tongues are sharp like a serpent's and who have the venom of asps under their lips. Let their words come back upon them. Let their words visit them. Let burning coals fall upon them, and let them be cast into fire, into miry pits, no more to rise. God's the justifier. God's the equalizer, not us. The psalmist doesn't say, "Let me do this." The psalmist simply says, "Let this come to pass. Let their judgment come upon them. Let them fall into the traps that they're setting." God's the justifier. There's a couple of passages I want to look at in connection with this as well. And I think I want to start in the book of Proverbs. Let's go to Proverbs 25 if you've got your Bibles open. Proverbs 25, verses 21 and 22. If your enemy is hungry, give him bread to eat. Remember we talked about a moment ago that no matter what other people are doing, our job is to keep doing what God has told us to do. Our job is to keep being honest. Our job is to keep being right. Our job is to keep being fair. Our job is to try to lift other people up and strengthen them and build them and help make their lives better. If your enemy is hungry, give him bread to eat. If he's thirsty, give him water to drink. You'll heap burning coals on his head. That's similar language, isn't it? Let burning coals fall upon him. You will heap burning coals on his head, and the Lord will reward you. Doing what is right brings about what this prayer is about. Me and you and all of us being honest and being fair and being just and serving and helping and caring for and being right and peaceable with all. That is what makes the words and the plans of these people come back upon them. That's what makes them aware of their evil. And so we don't miss out. This applies to us today, though I don't think we have to do this. Let's turn over to Romans 12 for a moment. Romans 12, the primary verse is verse 20. I'm going to back up a little bit. Start reading in verse 9, but we're reading toward verse 20. Let love be genuine. Abhor what is evil. Hold fast to what is good. Love one another with brotherly affection. Outdo one another in showing honor. Do not be slothful in zeal. Be fervent in spirit. Serve the Lord. Rejoice in hope. Be patient in tribulation. Be constant in prayer. Contribute to the needs of the saints and seek to show hospitality. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse them. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be haughty, but associate with the lowly. Never be wise in your own sight. Repay no one evil for evil, but give thought to do what is honorable in the sight of all. If possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceable with all. Beloved, never avenge yourselves, but leave it to the wrath of God, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. To the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed them. If he's thirsty, give him something to drink, for by so doing you will heap burning coals on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. That is what this prayer is about. That's what the Proverbs writer was talking about. The Roman writer says it applies to me, and it applies to you, and it applies to us in this day, and the things that are happening to me and to you. We need to realize that the answer to the request of the mischief of their lips overwhelming them is by you and me doing what is honorable. It's by you and me feeding them when they're hungry and giving them something to drink when they're thirsty and helping them and serving them despite the fact that we know that they plot evil against us. We overcome evil not by being evil. We overcome evil by being righteous, by being good. Finally, verse 12, I know that the Lord will maintain the cause of the afflicted and will execute justice for the needy. If I know this, then I have to make sure that that truth informs my thinking. Bad behavior starts with accepting a lie. We learned that all the way back in Genesis 3. It was when Eve accepted the lie that she ate the fruit and transgressed. It was when, everyone. Every evil deed that is done is born from someone believing the thing that isn't true, but they believe it is true. At the moment they believe the lie is true. If I know that the Lord will maintain the cause of the afflicted, even if it doesn't look like it to me, I don't accept the lie. I don't believe it. When the doubt is seated in my mind to say, God isn't listening, God doesn't care, God isn't helping, God isn't going to deliver. No, I know that the Lord will maintain the cause of the afflicted. And so I'm going to live based on that truth. Not the lie that the devil's trying to sell me. If I know that, then I work to make sure that that truth informs my thinking, that it directs my actions, that Satan's lies don't supplant my awareness of the truth. Eve knew the truth. But the lie worked its way in and pushed the truth out. The other contrasting story, the only contrasting story that I can come up with, is Matthew chapter 4, the story of Jesus. Where Satan was trying to do the same thing, trying to work his lies, trying to get Jesus to accept the lie and to act on the lie instead of act on the truth in which he knew. And Jesus continually said, it is written, and acted on the truth that he knew. Not on the lie. We have to do that. If I know that God is there, if I know that God is listening, if I know that God is going to help the afflicted, if I know that justice is going to come, if I know that he has said, vengeance is mine, I will repay, then I don't have to. I don't have to try. I don't have to get down on their level. I don't have to get dirty. I don't have to get into the mire. I instead can walk in righteousness, shine forth the glory of God, and serve. Knowing that God is there, that I'll be rewarded, and that justice will be done. Deliver me, O Lord, from evil. When I read this psalm, when I think about it and chew on it and meditate, what I really come to realize is that I hold the power of whether or not I'm delivered from evil. When I decide whether I'm going to listen to God. When I decide whether I'm going to follow God. When I decide whether or not I'm going to believe the lie. When I decide whether I'm going to return evil for evil, or I'm going to overcome evil with good. I hold at least part of the responsibility with whether or not I'm delivered from the evil around me. Now, ultimately, God's the justifier. He's the equalizer. He's the judge. He's going to set things right. He's going to make sure justice is done. Ultimately, that's God's job. But whether or not it has any power over me, that all falls upon me in how I deal with these things. God told us not to be surprised when we see injustice in the kingdom. It's going to happen. As long as there are men living, it's going to happen. As long as men are seeking their own path, they're going to be devising evil. They're going to act violently with one another. As long as men are on the earth, there's going to be wars. There's going to be rumors of wars. There's going to be people trying to start wars. There's going to be people trying to undermine and destroy other men. As long as we live in this world, there will be poor among us. As long as we live in this world, there will be problems. As long as we live, there will not be a utopia. As long as we live on this earth, evil will exist. The only question is whether or not I'm going to get entangled in it. Or whether I'm going to listen to God, trust God, put my faith in God, and realize it's outside of my hands. I can't stop the evil. I can only do what's right. I can't prevent someone from lying about me. I can only refuse to lie about them. I can't prevent someone from trying to destroy my work. I can only try to help them in theirs. I can't stop someone from seeking to destroy my reputation. I can only build theirs. I can be there to be the hand that helps pull them out of the muck and out of the mire if they do come to the point that their words fall upon them and they feel the sting and they say, I don't want to be like this anymore. I can be there to take their hand. I can snatch them out of the fire. Jude talks about that, right? Help set them on the course, help bear their burden, and thus fulfill the law of Christ. That's when I'm the victorious person of Psalm 140. Lessons yours for your consideration. Let's all use these things to challenge ourselves. When we read these things, we need to read them saying, not, what does this mean about what this person's doing or how this person's living or what that person... We need to read these things by saying, what is this telling me about how I'm living, about what I think, about what I'm doing? How do I need to change? Because that's who God's writing to. He's writing to me. Think about these things. Make the application as you see fit. And if we can help you in any way, let it be known as we stand and sing.